What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. And here's the question I get from time to time and I wanted to address in this video, and that is, should I mix several brands of watercolor paint or should I just stick to using one? Or in other words, can I use several brands in one given painting, or should I separate them perhaps into different paintings, different palettes, and so on? So I'm gonna get straight to the point. I don't look at a specific brand necessarily. What I look at is specific paints that I find useful, okay? So I will freely mix and match, sometimes in the same palette, sometimes in the very same neighboring wells. I will put one brand next to another and I'm fine with that, because I don't look at the brand as much as I look at the specific useful color. Now I do have some brand preferences, but that's besides the point. I'm talking about color usefulness. And what do I mean by that? Basically, I need three criteria to come to be true. So the first one is I need to personally like the paint. Okay, so some paints I just like the way they look, and some I don't. For example, I really like the Nickel Azo Yellow. It took me like instantly to fall in love with it, but some paints I don't like their look as much. For example, Daniel Smith's Burnt Sienna, I'm just not vibing with. I'm not feeling it, okay? But so this will really change from one paint to another. So that's, I have to like the paint. It has to be LIGHTFAST. That's really important as well, because LIGHTFAST paints are a must, especially if you're working for a client or a big project. You want the paint to hold up to the test of time. And third is the ability to produce a large variety of values with it. That's my personal preference, because I find that it is important for me to be able to darken fully, and my style tends to go towards the more punchy contrast, okay? But that's me. Not everyone's gonna need that. So this is what I mean when I say useful colors, and that's what I'm more concerned with rather than the specific brand. Now, what about compatibility between brands? Meaning, and I had this worry when I got started, will it look good when it's mixed? Will it create weird effects or weird undesired results? So my answer to that is that you really have to test it out on a case-by-case basis. Some paints are going to mix really well together while others won't, even when it is an artist grade brand that's really good. Sometimes the mix and match won't work. So for example, you may discover that Daniel Smith's Phthalo Blue mixes really well with the Alizarin Crimson Permanent of SAA, as I discovered. But then again, you may find that a different color doesn't work as well. So you really have to test it out, and I will encourage you to try it out before you commit to a palette and find out the combinations, inter-brand combinations that work for you. Now, there is an issue of single pigment colors. So when you have a single pigment color, it means that in the tube there's only one pigment. Then there's the binder and all the rest of the components, but there is one pigment. Now, usually, just as a side note, when some convenience mixtures such as greens and purples and blacks especially will have several pigments in them, but most of the real true colors like ultramarine and phthalo and all of those should have just one pigment in them. So as a side note, if a brand has several pigments in every tube, it probably means that they're of lesser quality or less recommended. But the point here is this: if you're mixing between brands, you want to be aware of how many pigments a tube has when you mix generally, even not just between brands. So for example, sap green has like 3 colors in it. I believe it's French ultramarine, then there's quinacridone orange, and then there's this type of yellow, I believe, and all of these 3 are in that tube. So when you mix this sap green, which is Daniel Smith, which is artist grade, with another paint, you at the very minimum have 4 pigments, unless it's one of the same ones that you have in the sap green. You'll have 4 pigments, and then it may lead to some undesired results, muddy mixes, unexpected results, granulations or over granulations that you weren't expecting. So what I would say is you have to be aware of that issue of single pigment paints, and if you're already mixing brands, that's perfectly fine. I would try to go for single pigment tubes. Now, what about mixing artist and student grade brands? So if, for example, you're using Van Gogh paints that are student grade together with Daniel Smith. I would advise against it for the sole reason of, if you're already using artist grade, I wouldn't want you to contaminate them with student grade, okay? It's not a must, but I would recommend against it, Okay, now in a pinch, if you have no other choice, you're outside, you need a yellow and you ran out of artist grade yellow, and by chance you have student grade yellow, I would use it. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but especially for larger projects, for client projects, I would advise against it, because you're already using, artist grade, why downgrade in the same painting? Now feel free to mix student grade brands. That's perfectly fine. You may get more unexpected results because of their composition, but at least you won't be contaminating artist grade with student grade. So this is it. I hope this clears up this question for you. I would encourage you to write down in a comment below if you have any specific questions like this one. I would be happy to address any other questions you have to that alike on anything that has to do with art, drawing, painting, sketching, whatever, even the business side of art. So let me know in a comment down below, and don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. That really helps YouTube show it to more people, and also subscribe if you still haven't. I have 2 upcoming tutorials I think you're gonna really love as a part of a series on Thursday and Saturday, so you want to stay tuned for those, and I will see you again in the next vid real soon.